Pakshi Khurana coming up in the next hour. Israeli military begins limited ground operation against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. U.S. defense chief speak to Israeli counterpart, says Iran will face serious consequences if it attacks Israel. Devastating Hurricane Helene leaves 118 dead. Homeland Security chief says toll could hit 600. President Biden pledges to aid victims as long as it takes to visit affected region on Wednesday.
Is that it looks like there could be as many as 600 lost lives, but we don't have any confirmation of that.
Dutch ex-premier Mark Rute set for NATO top job as conflicts mar Europe and West Asia to take over as Secretary General from Jens Stoltenberg at NATO headquarters in Brussels. India's Jammu and Kashmir votes in the third and final phase of elections. Over 3.9 million voters to decide fate of 415 candidates in 40 assembly constituencies. Bolivia declares wildfires ravaging eastern parts since June as national disaster, while California line fire burning since early September flares up over the weekend and prompts new evacuations. On to the top story. Israeli military said it has started limited, localized and targeted raids against Hezbollah targets in the border area of southern Lebanon. The IDF, in a statement on social media platform X early on Tuesday, said the troops, backed by airstrikes and artillery, launched ground raids a few hours ago, targeting militant group Hezbollah in villages close to the border. The statement said the IDF is operating according to a methodological plan set out by the General Staff and the Northern Command, which IDF soldiers have trained and prepared for in recent months. The statement further reads, Operation Northern Arrows will continue according to the situational assessment and in parallel to combat in Gaza and in other arenas. Also, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Monday offered support to Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for dismantling attack infrastructure along the border with Lebanon after Israel launched targeted ground raids on Hezbollah. In a statement on social media platform X, the Pentagon said U.S. Defense Secretary spoke with his Israeli counterpart to discuss security developments and Israeli operations. Austin reaffirmed that a diplomatic resolution is required to ensure that civilians can return safely to their homes on both sides of the border. U.S. Defense Secretary also issued a warning to Iran of serious consequences if it directly attacks Israel. Earlier, the U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said Israel has informed about the ground operations in South Lebanon. Talking to reporters, Miller said U.S. and Israel have discussed reports of ground operations, and Israel has told Washington they are at this time limited operations focused on Hezbollah infrastructure near the border with Lebanon.
We have been in conversations. They have been informing us about a number of operations. I've seen reports about ground operations. We've had some conversations with them about that. They have, at this time, told us that those are limited operations focused on Hezbollah infrastructure near the border, but we're in continuous conversations with them about it.
Amid reports of a potential escalation in the Israel-Lebanon conflict, Britain has repeated its call for immediate ceasefire in the region. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy discussed the matter with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken over the phone on Monday. The two leaders stressed on the need for a diplomatic solution to restore security and stability for Lebanese and Israeli people.
We came together as a G7 of nations and as a Security Council to urge and call for an immediate ceasefire and 21 days in which we can get to a political solution so that Israelis can move back to their homes in northern Israel, so that Lebanese can move back to their homes in southern Lebanon, so that we could see the implementation of Resolution 1701, and so that both these countries can live side by side in peace.
Well, Israel's army on Monday published a video showing forces preparing for the next phase of combat. The army video showed Israeli tanks driving and firing the army's Northern Command commander as well. Major General Ori Gordon leading a meeting with other officers. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told local council heads in northern Israel that the next phase of the conflict along Lebanon's southern border would begin soon and support the aim of bringing home Israelis who have fled Hezbollah rockets during nearly a year of conflict. And in another video, a series of explosions were seen near Beirut's airport on Monday. The video published by the Israel's army showed strikes on Hezbollah missile launchers near the airport. At least 2 Israeli strikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs about an hour after the Israeli military had warned residents to evacuate areas near buildings it said contained Hezbollah infrastructure south of the Lebanese capital. Meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu about recent developments in West Asia. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "Terrorism has no place in our world. It is crucial to prevent regional escalation and ensure the safe release of all hostages. India is committed to supporting efforts for an early restoration of peace and stability." Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered the conscription of 133,000 new servicemen in Russia's autumn draft. As per a Kremlin decree published on Monday, Moscow will carry out the draft of citizens aged 18 to 30 years who are not in the reserve and are subject to conscription in accordance with the federal law. The head of Russia's conscription office, Vice Admiral Vladimir Smolyansky, said that the terms for the conscript remains the same, that is 12-month service in military units. The draft will start on October 1st and goes until the end of the year. Putin in September ordered the Russian army to be increased by 180,000 troops to 1.5 million active servicemen. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the situation on the front line of the conflict against Russia was very difficult, referring to a more than 2.5-hour meeting with top commanders. He added Ukraine's forces had to do everything they could over the autumn period. It was the second time in less than a week that Zelensky referred to the need to act quickly in the coming months in the terms of military action. Russian forces have also been advancing slowly for months further north with the aim of capturing the entire Donbas region. And former Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rute takes over as NATO boss on Tuesday. At a ceremony at NATO headquarters in Brussels, Rute will take over as Secretary General from Jens Stoltenberg. He's charged with holding the Western military alliance together with the Russia-Ukraine conflict at a critical moment and a pivotal U.S. presidential election approaching. NATO officials and diplomats expect Rute to maintain Stoltenberg's priorities at the 32-member alliance, rallying support for Ukraine, pushing NATO countries to spend more on defense and keeping the U.S. engaged in European security. Rute stepped down as Dutch Premier this year after a record 14 years in the job. And in China, a man has killed 3 people and wounded 15 in a knife attack at a supermarket in the mega city of Shanghai. The 37-year-old suspected attacker was arrested at the supermarket shortly after the incident on Monday night. Police said the man went on the rampage in anger caused by a personal financial dispute. Violent knife crime is not uncommon in China, where firearms are strictly controlled, with a number of similar attacks at schools in the recent years. And moving on, Shigeru Ishiba was set to be voted in by Parliament as Japan's next Prime Minister on Tuesday. He unveiled his cabinet as he seeks to heal party divisions and prepare for an October 27th election. The 67-year-old former defense minister, who won a close-fought contest to lead the ruling Liberal Democratic Party last week, is virtually assured of being formally designated premier due to his party's majority in the parliament. The result of the vote will be followed by the emperor formally appointing Ishiba and his cabinet in a ceremony at Tokyo's Imperial Palace. Ishiba is also expected to hold a late press conference on Tuesday. And the United Arab Emirates on Monday condemned the attack on its ambassador in Khartoum by a Sudanese military aircraft. UAE Minister of State Sheikh Shakbout Nahyan Al Nahyan, during his speech to the United Nations General Assembly in New York, called it as a flagrant violation of international law. Though the Sudanese army has rejected the accusation and blamed instead the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The Sudanese army has repeatedly accused the UAE of providing weapons and support to the RSF in Sudan's 17-month-old conflict, with the Gulf state denies.
We strongly condemn the blatant attacks launched by the Sudanese armed forces on the residence of the ambassador of the United Arab Emirates in Khartoum on the 29th September 2024. In what was a flagrant violation of the fundamental principle of the inviolability of diplomatic premises and of international convention and norms, particularly the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations.
Well, the United Nations Security Council on Monday extended a multinational police mission to Haiti for another year. This comes as the Caribbean nation grapples with surged gang violence and instability. However, U.S. push for a plan to transform the mandate into a UN peacekeeping mission was dropped from the resolution. The resolution adopted unanimously expressed deep concern about the situation in Haiti, including violence, criminal activities and mass displacement. The vote comes just days after the UN reported that at least 3,661 people had been killed in Haiti in the first half of 2024 amid gang violence. Also, Haiti's UN ambassador stressed that transforming the security mission into a UN peacekeeping operation is a matter of urgency.
The challenges remain significant and complicated. Gang violence continues to rend. The social fabric and human rights violations are multiplying, plunging thousands of families into distress. Insecurities are omnipresent, paralyzing the economy, undermining the institutions, and fueling fear among the population. There is no doubt that the mission needs to be reinforced in order to be fully operational. And in this regard, the transformation of the MSS into a peacekeeping operation under the mandate of the United Nations appear not just to be necessary, but a matter of urgency.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. The U.S. vice presidential candidates campaigned ahead of the much-awaited vice presidential debate to be hosted by CBS News on 1st of October. In addition to the destruction, Hurricane Helene has kicked up a political storm too. Detailed story after the break. And the second stage of SpaceX workhorse Falcon 9 rocket malfunctioned after a NASA astronaut mission, grounding the rocket for the third time in 3 months.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. Lepakshi Khurana. And moving on, the U.S. vice presidential candidates, Democratic Governor of Minnesota Tim Walz and Republican U.S. Senator of Ohio J.D. Vance campaigned on Monday. The campaign comes a day ahead of their scheduled vice presidential debate. The 90-minute debate, to be hosted by CBS News, will take place on Tuesday in New York City, a Democratic stronghold that is the former home of the Republican presidential candidate. Here's a report.
Don't try to get your... And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
The vice presidential debate is pepping up excitement in the U.S. like perhaps no other so far.
Well, thank you.
It's an open question whether debates, even at the presidential level, move the needle. But this being called a very, very close race, even a small influence on the fence sitters can make a huge difference to the fortunes. So this VP debate on CBS network has all it takes to make it a spicy treat for the audience. When Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Walz collide in a vice presidential debate, both will seek to fill in the basic outlines that the American public has seen of them so far. And the contrast between the candidates couldn't be more defined. J.D. Vance is a best-selling author who coined the term childless cat ladies to disparage Democrats and made up a wild allegation about immigrants eating pets. Tim Walz, on the other hand, is a folksy former high school football coach who has called his Republican opponents weird, a label that quickly stuck. Both are white men from the Midwest who claim to understand what Americans in the heartland really want, but are sharply divided over policy. The debate will give both men the opportunity to make persuasive closing arguments on behalf of their campaigns, just as early voting ramps up across the country. Typically, a vice presidential debate is viewed as the undercard, a clash largely overlooked by the voters. But Walz and Vance's barbs have attracted outsized attention, and voters might be more interested than usual to see them go head-to-head on October 1st in their only scheduled debate before the November 5th election. Bureau Report, DD India. Well, a Georgia judge on Monday overruled the southern U.S. state's ban on performing abortions for women who are more than 6 weeks pregnant. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney ruled that Georgia's so-called heartbeat abortion law is unconstitutional. The state law banned abortions after an embryo's cardiac activity can be detected, which is usually around 6 weeks before many women even know they are pregnant. It was passed by the Republican-dominated state legislature in 2019 and went into effect in 2022 after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the nationwide right to the procedure that unleashed a wave of restrictions in nearly 24 of the 50 U.S. states. And leaders from Latin America and the Caribbean landed in Mexico to attend the inauguration of President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum to be held on Tuesday. Leaders including Brazilian President Lula da Silva, Cuban leader Miguel Diaz-Canel, Honduran President Castro, Chilean leader Gabriel Boric, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, and Guatemalan leader Bernardo Arejuelo arrived for the event. Claudia Sheinbaum won a landslide victory to become Mexico's first female president in the United States, Mexico and Canada in June. And some weather-related updates now. Well, death toll in Hurricane Helene climbed to 118 on Monday, but the numbers are likely to increase. U.S. Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall said that there could be as many as 600 deaths due to Hurricane Helene. But the devastating storm also left a trail of political accusations as presidential election looms large. Devastating Hurricane Helene has left a trail of destruction in its wake in at least 5 southeastern states of the U.S. Now, as authorities grapple with a huge task of relief, rescue and rehabilitation, the hurricane has kicked up a political storm. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump made the relief ops an election issue on Sunday when he said that U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris should have been in Washington. Trump accused Biden at a rally in Pennsylvania on Sunday of sleeping instead of dealing with the disaster and said Harris was at fundraisers with the radical left lunatic donors. Biden shot back on Monday. In an Oval Office briefing, he retorted angrily to Trump's allegations.
He is lying. Let me get this straight. He's lying. And the governor told him he was lying. The governor told me he was lying. I've spoken to the governor, spent time with him, and he told me he's lying. I don't know why he does this. And the reason I get so angry about it, I don't care about what he says about me, but I care what he communicates to the people that are in need. He implies that we're not doing everything possible. We are. We are.
The race is now to visit the affected areas. In an Oval Office briefing, Biden said he would visit the North Carolina on Wednesday.
I'm going to North Carolina on Wednesday, as planned now. We're going to be landing in Raleigh for a briefing with the Emergency Operations Center, and I'll then do an aerial tour of Asheville.
U.S. Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris cut short a campaign trip to Nevada to take part in briefings in Washington on response efforts to Hurricane Helene.
I plan to be on the ground as soon as possible, but as soon as possible without disrupting any emergency response operations, because that must be the highest priority in the first order of business.
Trump visited Valdosta, Georgia on Monday, where major flooding from the storm occurred. Trump said he spoke to billionaire Elon Musk about getting Starlink internet access to areas affected by Hurricane Helene. Georgia and North Carolina are both key states in the tight election being held in just 5 weeks' time. Bureau Report, DD India. Well, flooding and landslides triggered by heavy rains in Nepal over the weekend have killed 217 people, even as rescue efforts intensified on Monday. Nepal's Home Ministry said the number of those missing stands at 28. Meanwhile, all highways out of Kathmandu remain blocked due to landslides, but workers managed to temporarily clear the Prithvi Highway. Prime Minister Khadga Prasad Oli has called an emergency meeting to address the crisis, while the Ministry of Finance would immediately provide 1 billion rupees to the fund as per the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act. Well, the Indian Embassy in Nepal has received intimation regarding Indian citizens stranded in various parts because of this situation. In an advisory, the embassy said that it is in touch with some of these groups and arranging for their safe return. Embassy is also coordinating closely with Nepali authorities to facilitate the evacuation of Indian citizens who are stranded. It has also issued emergency numbers with WhatsApp. These are +977 9851 316807. Another number is +977 98511 07021 and +977 974 98339292. And in India's Bihar, the flood situation in 13 districts of north part of the country remains grim amid the news of more breaches in embankments of the river Bagmati. The river Kosi, Gandak, Mahananda and Bagmati are flowing above the danger mark at most of the places. The affected population have been evacuated to higher places where community kitchens are being run to provide food to the affected population. NDRF is engaged in rescue and relief work. The discharge from Valmiki Nagar and Kosi barrages are lower than yesterday, but there is no respite in the flood situation. And for more, we have Salman Haider joining us from Patna on floods. Well, Salman, flood alert has been sounded in almost 13 districts of Bihar, and the Bihar government has sounded an alert. Fill us with more details.
Yes, Lipakshi, at least 6 districts are reeling intensely under the heavy floods, as there are at least 5 breaches in embankments of Kosi, Bagmati and other rivers. Gandak is there. Last night there was a breach in an embankment in Darbhanga, where the water overflowed the embankment and gushed a vast area of the village in Kiratpur. So there is vast damage. Meanwhile, the Department of Disaster Management officers have made aerial survey last night to assess the situation on the ground, and they had ordered to fill in the gaps of breaches in embankments. So all the efforts are being made, and DRF is there to help the people, to support them. But many of the people, along with their cattle, have taken shelter over the embankment, where still they are not very safe, and the flood waters have spread in a vast area of Darbhanga, Sitamarhi, West Champaran, even in Muzaffarpur also. So North Bihar, whole of North Bihar is now reeling under the intense flood. And now the situation is becoming grimmer right now. So the efforts are on, and community kitchens have been established by the authorities, disaster management authorities. So this is the situation. Luckily, no loss of life has been reported from anywhere, but the water coming from Nepal is playing havoc in the rivers flowing in Indian area. These are the situations here now, Lipakshi.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Salman, thank you so much for all those details. And moving on, Super Typhoon Krathon has lashed the Philippines and is now churning towards Taiwan, prompting warnings and flight cancellations. The slow-moving storm was blowing westward and could strengthen into a super typhoon when it veers northeastward on Tuesday towards Taiwan. The storm is expected to cross the island's major port city of Kaohsiung, bringing torrential rain and strong winds. The government has closed schools and evacuated over 800 people in the south and east as a precaution. Nearly 40,000 troops have also been deployed to bolster rescue efforts. Meanwhile, evacuation orders and warnings were in place on Monday for Southern California residents due to fire that is largely contained after the blaze flared up over the weekend. Residents in the San Bernardino, Seven Oaks area were ordered to evacuate on Sunday. The fires now consumed 43,000 acres of the land. Temperatures are expected to spike this week across California. And Bolivia officially declared a national disaster on Monday due to the devastating wildfires affecting eastern Bolivia. This measure comes after weeks of requests from local authorities and citizens demanding more forceful intervention to confront the environmental crisis, which has already consumed more than 7 million hectares of forest alone. Authorities have requested international assistance as they contend with 72 active fires that have scorched 3.8 million hectares of land. Bolivian government announced the measure, citing severe air pollution and a sanitary danger due to the fires.
We have approved this decree 5253, which is the declaration of national disasters, so that we can activate everything possible to combat these fires, which have been worrying us for the last 3 months, in which we have been fighting them.
Para poder enfrentar.
And the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration on Monday said SpaceX must investigate why the second stage of its Workhorse Falcon 9 rocket malfunctioned after a NASA astronaut mission on Saturday, grounding the rocket for the third time in 3 months. After SpaceX on Saturday launched 2 astronauts to the International Space Station for NASA, the rocket body that had boosted the crew further into space failed to properly relight its engine for its de-orbit burn, a routine procedure that escorts the booster into the ocean after completing its flight. The astronaut crew carried on to the ISS safely, docking on Sunday as planned. The FAA said there were no injuries or property damage linked to the booster mishap. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Jamaican PM in India to hold delegation-level talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and call on President and Vice President of India. Leaders of 8 countries speak in favor of India's permanent seat in United Nations Security Council. An initiative for sensitizing society on deaf blindness, SEDB, spreading awareness and empowering deaf-blinded. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Israeli military begins limited ground operation against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. U.S. defense chief speak to Israeli counterpart, says Iran will face serious consequences if it attacks Israel. Devastating Hurricane Helene leaves 118 dead. Homeland Security Chief says toll could hit 600. President Biden pledges to aid victims as long as it takes to visit affected region on Wednesday. Dutch ex-premier Mark Rute is set for NATO top job as conflicts mar Europe and West Asia to take over as Secretary General from Jens Stoltenberg at NATO headquarters in Brussels. India's Jammu and Kashmir votes in the third and final phase of elections. Over 3.9 million voters to decide fate of 415 candidates in 40 assembly constituencies. Bolivia declares wildfires ravaging eastern parts since June as national disaster, while California line fire burning since early September flares up over the weekend and prompts new evacuations. And moving on, Jammu and Kashmir is voting today for the third and final phase of its assembly elections to decide the electoral fate of 415 candidates. 11.60% voter turnout has been recorded till 9 a.m. amidst high security arrangements to ensure terror-free and peaceful polling. Over 39.18 lakh voters are expected to exercise their franchise at 5,060 polling stations in this crucial phase, covering 40 assembly segments in Jammu, Udhampur, Samba and Kathua in the Jammu region and Baramulla, Bandipora and Kupwara in North Kashmir.
I live in Batidi and my polling station is in Batidi. It's a high school. I have cast my vote in the morning. Just now I am coming from there. The whole of the polling staff is very helpful, and I was the second person to cast vote on my police station, and I am satisfied with all the arrangements. I appeal to everybody that they should come and cast their vote for their candidates so that we are a participant to the democratic process of it.
Well, the voter turnout was robust in the earlier phases, with 61.38% participation recorded in the first phase on September 18th and 57.31% in the second phase on September 26th, while counting of votes will be held on October 8th. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged voters in North India's Jammu and Kashmir to come out in large numbers and exercise their franchise to make the Festival of Democracy a success. In a social media post, PM Modi expressed confidence that besides first-time voters, women power will also participate in the electoral process in large numbers. And now we have Tahir Nadeem Khan from Jammu joining us for more. Well, Tahir, how is the atmosphere in Jammu since the voting began at 7 a.m.? People must have started to come out to vote. Tell us the ground situation.
Well, Dipakshi, polling is going on smoothly in all the polling stations across Jammu and Kashmir, 5,060 polling stations. No untoward incident has been reported so far. And the enthusiasm is very high, not at this time, but people started converging at their respective polling stations since 6:30 a.m. in the morning. And right now you can see long queues in each and every polling station. And in the first 2 hours, Udhampur has taken the lead with 14.23% of electorates have polled their votes, closely followed by 13.39 Samba and 13.11 in this Kathua district. As far as Kashmir Valley is concerned, Bandipora has taken the lead with 11.64% and Baramulla stands at the lowest ebb at 8.04%. But the enthusiasm of the voters is very high, especially in border areas along international border. And I must name few polling stations which have been established for the first time on along the international border. These are 29 polling stations which have been established along international border in district Samba, Jammu and district Kathua. And some polling stations are along LOC in Kupwara district. But the reports coming from these border polling stations are very encouraging, be it in Rajpura, Manialgarh, Abduliya, Suchetgarh. All along these polling stations, voters are coming in large number to exercise their franchise. And especially I must quote one particular polling station, which is Zelada in Samba. Zelada polling station is the only polling station which has been established in underground bunker. And the said polling station has taken the lead as at 9 a.m. 16.75% voters have casted their vote in that underground bunker polling station, which is for the first time, which is really encouraging in this final phase where 40 assembly constituencies are going to poll. Yeah, Deepak.
All right, Nadeem, thank you so much for all those details from there. And moving on, Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness on Monday began a 4-day visit to India to solidify bilateral ties in a range of key areas, including trade and investment. This is his first visit to India and also the first ever bilateral visit of a Prime Minister of Jamaica to India. During the visit, Prime Minister Holness will hold delegation-level talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and call on President and Vice President of India. A number of MOUs are expected to be signed during the visit, giving a fillip to bilateral cooperation. India and Jamaica share strong historical and cultural linkages reflected in their shared colonial past, values of democracy and freedom, and passion for cricket. And the world today recognizes India's role on the global stage, which was quite evident at the 79th United Nations General Assembly concluded last month. Leaders of 8 countries spoke in favor of India's permanent seat in United Nations Security Council, besides supporting India's stand on reform of not just the UN, but also other international organizations such as the World Bank and International Monetary Fund to meet the challenges of the 21st century. It has also been praised for being a big support to countries during various disasters.
The reform of the United Nations Security Council and the international financial institutions that emerged from Bretton Woods seems to be urgent and pressing in order to give voice to the countries of Global South, namely Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent.
Chile proposes that we set a deadline for this reform, and when the UN celebrates its 80th birthday, we'll do so with a Security Council that is in line with current times, that includes Brazil from Latin America, India, and at least one country from Africa.
France, as I reiterate here, is in favour of the Security Council being expanded. Germany, Japan, India, Brazil should be permanent members.
It is time for permanent membership of the Security Council to be expanded to include Japan, India, Germany, Brazil, and representation from the African countries.
Portugal supports the African Common Position and the aspirations of Brazil and India to become permanent members.
Presentation of the Global South in the UN Security Council. We support our position in favor of the candidacies of Brazil and India.
Reforming the UN Security Council to better represent the developing world and, more broadly, the world as it is today. The United States believes that this should include 2 permanent seats for Africa, 1 rotating seat for small island developing states, permanent representation for Latin America and the Caribbean, in addition to the permanent seats for countries we've long endorsed, Germany, Japan, India.
Representation on the Council. Brazil, India, Japan and Germany as permanent members.
Multipolarity and diversity in the 21st century, the Indian Voice of the Global South initiative and many others.
But most importantly, I would like to reserve our deepest thanks to India, our closest friend and neighbor. They have been with us from the very beginning of our development journey and have remained steadfast in their support and friendship.
Well, deaf-blindness is a very rare kind of disability in which a person cannot see, hear and speak. India Society for the Empowerment of the Deaf-Blind is working since 2015 to empower people with such disability to become independent. Zameer Dhale, who is himself deaf-blind and the founder of SEDB India, teaches how a person, after learning the tactile sign communication, can comfortably communicate with people like him. We get you a short glimpse of it.
Hello, Namaste. My name is Zameer, Zameer, Dhale, Dhale, Zameer Dhale. This is my sign name. I am a deaf-blind person, which means I cannot see, cannot hear and cannot speak. During 1999, when I started studying and was the receiver of technology and technical devices, which helped me in doing advocacy, and I'm still working for it. I'm an independent person now, and my life goal is to make other people independent too, so that we don't need to take help from hearing people. I have faced a lot of challenges and barriers because at a lot of places there were no accessibility, but technology is a boon and it helps us a lot. I use Braille device through which I feel empowered and an independent person. It helped me in learning English language, and now I can type letters and communicate in English language. There are still lots of areas where accessibility is required, and government has helped us as well. In earlier times, we were not provided with sign language interpreters, accessible equipments, or scribe who can help or assist us in writing the paper. We required tactile sign language interpreters and Indian currency notes to have Braille features to help us in identifying the currency, and then we will not be required to depend on any person. A deafblind person use multiple assistive devices in their daily routine of life, like Braille device, which help them in communicating with other person, white cane, through which walking on the roads become barrier-free, an app which enlarge the font for the person with low vision to read the text. All these assistive devices are making the life of deafblind people much easier. And sign language is the basic necessity of deaf-blind person.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Superstar Rajinikanth has been admitted to the Apollo Hospital in Chennai on Monday late at night after he complained of severe stomach pain. Hospital sources have confirmed that the 73-year-old superstar's condition is stable. The Hand-to-Hand Fighting Sport Federation of India and the Hand-to-Hand Fighting Sport Association of Odisha organized an invitational national hand-to-hand fighting sport training workshop in Bhubaneswar. The workshop was intended for athletes selected to compete in the World Hand-to-Hand Fighting Sport Championship in Bukhara, Uzbekistan and the World Cup in Astana, Kazakhstan. The Women and Child Development Department of Odisha marked the launch of State Level Nutrition Month 2024 with a celebration at the State Women and Child Institute in Bhubaneswar. The event emphasized the vital role played by grassroots workers in the fight against malnutrition. Artists are preparing the clay idols of Hindu goddess Durga at workshops ahead of Durga Puja festival. The festival is celebrated to mark Durga's victory over Mahishasur. This year's festival will be celebrated from October 3rd to October 13th. And still to come on DD India News Hour. To meet growing demand for cloud computing in Southeast Asia, Google plans huge investment in Thailand. Ruthless India hunt continues. Bangladesh looking to put up resistance on day 5 of Kanpur test. And 10,000 fireworks illuminate the night sky in Futuba town in Fukushima prefecture.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khuranan. On to some business news now. With a strike deadline looming, the union for 45,000 dock workers and the group representing Eastern Gulf Coast ports have exchanged wage offers, leaving a ray of hope that a deal can be reached without a major work stoppage. In a statement, the U.S. Maritime Alliance, which represents 36 ports from Maine to Texas, said that both sides have moved from their previous positions. The alliance said it also asked the union to extend the current contract. The Maritime Alliance represents the major shipping lines, all of which are foreign-owned, as well as terminal operators and port authorities. The ports involved include the Port of New York and New Jersey, the nation's third largest port by volume of cargo handled, but it also includes ports with other specialities. And Google plans to invest $1 billion to build digital infrastructure in Thailand. The move aims to meet growing demand for cloud computing in Southeast Asia and would support 14,000 jobs in the kingdom. Google's investment comes after Microsoft announced in May that it would create Thailand's first data center region to boost cloud and artificial intelligence infrastructure. Google's expansion in Thailand will add $4 billion to the kingdom's GDP by 2029 and support 14,000 jobs between 2025 and 2029. While you're watching DD India News, our time now for some sports news. Day 5 of India versus Bangladesh second test starts in a thrilling show after India takes the 4th wicket. Ravichandran Ashwin gave India another wicket as he dismissed Mominul Haq for 2. Shadman Islam has now been joined by Najmul Hussain Shanto at the crease as 3 down Bangladesh rely on these 2 batters for a stable partnership. On the other hand, Indian bowlers are eyeing some quick wickets as they aim to bundle out Bangladesh at the earliest. India is stressing on getting out a result of this game, and skipper Rohit Sharma has been making tactical moves. And third-ranked Carlos Alcaraz will take on Daniil Medvedev in the semi-finals of China Open on Tuesday. The Spaniard delivered a high-quality 7-5, 6-2 victory against Karen Khachanov to book his last 4 spot at the ATP 500 in Beijing. Alcaraz has advanced to the China Open semi-finals for the 2nd straight year. Meanwhile, 5th-ranked Russian Daniil Medvedev beat Flavio Cobolli of Italy 6-2, 6-4 to reach the semi-finals. Medvedev is still looking for his first title of the year. And top-ranked Jannik Sinner defied the controversy surrounding his doping case to join Carlos Alcaraz and Daniil Medvedev in the China Open semi-finals. The defending champion defeated Yuri Lechenko 6-2, 7-6 for his 14th win in a row. The World Anti-Doping Agency sought a ban of up to 2 years after Sinner twice tested positive for a banned substance in March. The International Tennis Integrity Agency cleared the Italian of wrongdoing in August and allowed him to continue playing. The world #1 will face Yuncha Kote in the semi-finals in Beijing on Tuesday. And the National Basketball Association said on Monday that Basketball Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo has passed away at the age of 58 from brain cancer. Beloved by fans, the Congolese center was selected as an NBA All-Star 8 times, using his tremendous 7-foot 2-inch frame to become one of the league's most fearsome shot blockers. He had also earned Defensive Player of the Year honors for 4 times. Mutombo's gregarious personality with a trademark finger wag celebration made him a fan favorite as he played 18 seasons with 6 different teams in the league. He reached the NBA Finals twice. After retiring in 2009, he became NBA's first global ambassador and helped promote the sport in his country, Africa. And South Africa have recalled all-rounder Senuran Muthusamy to their 15-player squad for next month's 2-test tour of Bangladesh as one of 3 frontline spin options. Muthusamy played the last of his 3 tests in March 2023 and joins Keshav Maharaj and Dane Pitt as the specialist slow bowling options in the squad. Batter Matthew Britske is the only uncapped player in the squad, though he did tour West Indies in June when South Africa won a rain-affected series 1-0. Temba Bavuma will captain the side with the first test in Dhaka from October 21st to 25th and the second from October 29th to November 2nd in Chattogram. And now let's take you to Japan, where over 10,000 fireworks illuminated the night sky in Futaba town in Fukushima Prefecture, with wishes for reconstruction of the town devastated by the earthquake and nuclear accident of 2011. Spectators enjoyed the colorful show of fireworks and wished for the reconstruction of their communities. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.